Here is the 2024 Toyota Tacoma SR5 double cab 4x4 in supersonic red. This is a full refresh, and even the powertrain is getting more performance when you tick the box for the SR5 and up. If you go to the SR, you're not going to increase 50 horsepower from the prior turbocharged, or 72 pound-feet of torque. Even the V6 we lost, you're getting 52 pound-feet of torque more with this configuration. I'm Anthony from Hawkeye Rides, and I'm gonna go over some pros and cons, the problem that I have with the Tacoma, and the competition. We're gonna start with the LED headlights, daytime runnings, and fog lights. It's going to have a similar stance as the Tundra, so it's going to have that wide fascia. The fenders flare out with the side air curtain. But one thing I dislike about the stance of this vehicle, even though we still get over 8 inches of clearance, is this lower bit right here. And I get it. You're doing this to help with MPGs because you're getting 19 for the city and 24 for the highway. But it has an aesthetic look to it that doesn't look as off-roadsy as normal for the Tacoma. You can get up to 11 inches of clearance. And this year, they tack on a new Trailhunter. You'll get the multi-link rear suspension, which is also new for this year to make it a more smooth ride. As it sets, it's an independent double wishbone front suspension with a leaf spring rear suspension. And underneath the hood is gonna house the iForce 2.4 liter inline 4-cylinder turbocharged with 278 horsepower and 317 pound-feet of torque paired to an 8-speed automatic transmission. Towing has not become the best in class. It goes up to 6,500 pounds with the 4x4 when you go into the TRD pre-runner. Otherwise, it's going to be at 6,400 pounds for this. If you go to the two-wheel drive, you go down to 3,500 pounds and a payload over 1,700 pounds, which brings me to the big problem that I have. We got a refresh in which the Tundra did the same thing. It increased quite a bit from the prior, but it's still not the best for towing, payload, in which when you're thinking about Chevy and Ford, they're still beating this vehicle. The only major difference that we have now is we have a Trailhunter, which is a lot more off-road capable, and it'll change these 17-inch wheels, which is standard on the SR and SR5, to 18-inch wheels, making it a bronze color. But when you go into the Trailhunter or the TRD Pro, you can only option that in the Hybrid Max. The rear also gets that boxy look. It's not as picked up as the Colorado, so I appreciate that because I feel like it just sits up too high for the rear. And ticking the box for the TRD off-road will include the electronically controlled locking rear differential with an optional stabilizer disconnect and standard multi-terrain select that includes the crawl control and downhill assist. The spare tire is tucked underneath with a standard reverse camera for the SR5. The double cab is at 60.3 inches long, a width of 56.4 inches between the wheel well housing at 44.7 inches and a depth of 20.2 inches. Six-way manual adjustment for the front, two-way power for the lumbar for the driver. The soft tech starts on the limited trim. Heated, ventilated will be standard on that trim. Headroom and leg room. The refresh is going to be more modern but yet rugged, starting with Tacoma badging and storage with a USB port tucked behind the infotainment screen. So now you can put your smartphone and charge it. Grab handle will be right here on the passenger side. There isn't any pass-through. However, you can use this to utilize the USB ports, the 12 volt, in two areas for a smartphone. Wireless charging pad starts becoming an option on the TRD Sport. Climate control. The TRD Pre-Runner gets an optional dual climate control and an 8-inch infotainment screen with wireless Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, Sirius XM, AM, FM, streaming Bluetooth audio, standard 6 speakers. Put it into reverse, and we have trajectory that will expand out. You can also change the camera layout. It'll have kind of the fisheye effect, and you can take those lines off too which I would leave them on because it expands out, so it makes it a little bit easier. We do have a physical knob, so therefore you don't have to use every single thing through the infotainment screen. Digital key is an option for this trim. Auto dimming rear view mirror, LED interior lights, and going in to another storage pocket, and the key fob for the refreshed Tacoma. But you have a lot of little areas here that you can store anything. This is going to be more firm. It opens up to a mid-size storage pocket, and the steering wheel will be perforated on the side, multi-function. The TRD pre-runner will have a standard leather and heated steering wheel, and a 7-inch digital gauge cluster that can go through an array of information for the driver, including the traction and the pinch and roll, or like an off-road page, so that way you can see everything right there. A 12.3 digital reader can be optioned on this tier. The door panel and the dash integrated together, and it does a similar style as the Tundra. So you have an armrest here and here. It's going to be more firm, but you're expecting that. I like the 2 tiers of storage because if you don't want to use this as a grab handle, you can just simply use this as well. And you have 3 cup and bottle holders with another area for a smartphone. For the back seats, headroom and leg room, storage only behind the passenger seat, cup holders in the center with a 12 volt. The TRD Sport will get 2 USB ports, no area, or this doesn't fold down, for an armrest, and the door is going to have the same materials found in the front, except you're losing that center storage area, but you can kind of use a little bit here, and you still have 3 cup or bottle holders in the bottom. Sliding into the center, the floor is not completely flat. The rails are pushed up enough, but you will be sharing some feet space. But shoulder and leg space is going to be about the same with sharing, and headroom becomes a little bit more tight. And on the SR5, you can also option a power rear window. The back, you can fold these up at a 60-40 split, and you have a divider, so you don't have to worry about anything rolling around in the back. And you can fold these downwards, and it'll fold flat, so you have a little bit more cargo capacity behind. 278 horsepower, 317 pound-feet of torque. It's no more a dinosaur. It actually has motivation. Turn radius starts off with about the same as the prior, right around 3 lanes. Let's rock and roll. The pickup is a little bit better, and it should be because you have more horsepower and torque. We're now getting Toyota Safety Sense 3.0 with pre-collision. Now that adds pedestrian detection, blind spot monitoring, lane keep assist, steering assist, which means if you're running a little bit off the road, it'll actually push you back. That's what I just demonstrated as well. Road sign recognition, dynamic radar cruise control. You're not just getting updated safety, but even the technology. We're getting an 8-inch, no more 7-inch, that's standard. You get a standard 7-inch gauge cluster, and when you're on the SR5, you can option that 12.3. Going up the tier, you can get a 14-inch infotainment screen, which I'm iffy with that. I think a 10-inch would be okay. 14, you're getting the same size as the Tundra, and this is a smaller vehicle. That's going to take me to some pros and cons, in which you heard quite a bit of pros, but there's still a few more. The ride is a little bit more smoother, and it could be a little bit more performance driven for off-road, because now we have more capabilities with the Hybrid Max. Towing and payload is where the con comes into play, like I was saying on the exterior, because it's still not the best in class, and we just went through a refresh. Maneuverability, the steering is a lot more light than the prior gen, so you can get in and out. It's still a long vehicle, and you still have over 8 inches of clearance, which is a pro for me, because it feels like we have over 10 inches of clearance the way we're sitting in these seats. And a lot of that is derived because these seats are kind of on pedestals. They pick them up a little bit to make it a little bit more comfortable. Here and there you'll hear the turbocharge, but for the most part, once you're coasting, they sealed it up a lot better. I like that we have a lot more storage capacity, especially for the back seats, because now we have a total of 8 cup and bottle holders. Plus, as you go up the tier, you start getting a lot more value in the vehicle, like power seat adjustments. You'll get the soft tech seats, USB ports in the back, and they have a nice setup here in the center for a his and her for your smartphones. And as you go up the tier, you get wireless charging, in which I don't like this grab handle because I feel like it just takes away from utilizing that, but it does have a little bit of a pass-through because it's a grab handle, so you can utilize the USB ports at least. And on the passenger side, you have a USB port tucked behind the infotainment screen, which is quite cool because now they could just throw their phone in the dashboard, similar to a Honda Pilot, and they could charge it there instead of utilizing any of the charging ports here. The exhaust note is not as refined as the V6, but I like that we have more power and you can feel it when you're pushing on the gas pedal. But the comfort, it just blows me away how much more comfortable this variant is compared to the prior gen, because it was a lot more bumpy and it felt a little bit heavy. I would recommend going into the SR5. You can option features in this trim, and going into competition, Ford, Chevy, and GMC, the Tacoma is one of those vehicles that can do a lot more off-road capabilities and you're saving money, especially if you're looking for an everyday drive, because you can go into this, the SR5, and you have enough for payload, towing, and off-road capabilities, whereas when you go into the competition, you start having to tack on a few grand here and there in order to do some of the capabilities you can do in this at more of a base trim level. Now the sweet spot is the TRD pre-runner, because you get up to 6,500 pounds of towing, plus you have more options in the interior. And that brings me to the other problem that I have. When you're optioning the new Trailhunter or the TRD Pro, it can only be optioned with the Hybrid Max, and I get that, but then you can only get the 6-foot bed double cab layout. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. Check out the next video, merchandise, website, and Instagram. Leave a comment and a like. And I'd like to thank Gettle Stadium Toyota for giving us this 2024 Toyota Tacoma SR5 for our car review.